In 5.4b, we're going to use an online graphing calculator called Desmos to help us do the stuff we did in the first half of the lesson. So go to desmos.com, and if you need to, pause this video so you could go back and forth between Desmos and the video. All right, so go to desmos.com and then click on the blue bar that says Graphing Calculator. Okay, so then in the box on the left, you're going to type the equation, but you don't have to type the f of x equals. You could just type what I circled. So type x to the fourth. The way you go into the exponent, so after you type the x, click Shift 6. This button puts you in the exponent. So type the x first, then Shift 6. That'll bring you in the exponent, put a 4. And then to get back down out of the exponent, you could hit either the right arrow or the down arrow. That'll take you out of the exponent. Okay, so go ahead and type that into Desmos. And you should see something. Well, let me change the scale because the graph goes as low as negative 9.3. So I'm going to change the scale to count by 2s. Okay, so after you graph it, you should see something that looks kind of like this. So it hits at 1.2, negative 9.3. So it hits down here. It also hits around here. And okay, so it looks kind of like this. All right, so the nice thing about Desmos is if you click on certain points, it'll tell you what the coordinate is there. So if you click on the point here, Desmos will say 1.205, comma, negative 9.327. And if you click right here, it'll tell you 2.039, comma 0, and the one over here is negative 0.424, comma 0. All right, and let's use that to answer the questions. All right, so first we have to graph it, which we already did. Then we want to estimate the x coordinates of the relative maxima and relative minima. All right, so since both sides go up, this graph does not have a maximum. Notice there's only one turn also, so it doesn't have a relative max either. This graph only has a min, and we clicked on that earlier. This is the x coordinate at the minimum. The directions say to round to the nearest hundredth, so that would be 1.21, and then in parentheses, I'm going to indicate that that is a min. That's the true min. It's not even a relative min. That's the true min because it never goes lower than that. All right, next thing they want is a domain and range. Taught you yesterday that the domain for all of these is going to be all real numbers. All right, for an even graph, the range is not going to be all real numbers. We have a minimum. A minimum is something that you stay above. And remember that range is for y. So we put y is greater than or equal to, and this is the y coordinate that it always stays above. They want us to round that to the nearest hundredth, so that would be negative 9.33. Okay, going back to Desmos. So You can erase what you had in the box, or you can actually click on the circle on the left to turn off your previous graph. It doesn't really matter. All right, so in a new box, type x to the 5th minus 2x squared plus 2. So again, you don't have to type the f of x equals part. All right, so type that in the new box. Doesn't look like we have to change the scale for this one. Remember that to go into the exponent, you hit Shift 6. And to get out of the exponent, you hit the arrow down or arrow right. Right, so for this one, the graph looks something like this. So it starts around here. Goes up there. Something like this. If you count the turns, there are 2 turns. If you count the turns and then add 1, that's the lowest possible degree. So 2 turns, add 1, we get 3. That means the lowest possible degree is 3. It doesn't mean that will be the degree. So the lowest possible degree is 3, but this happens to have a degree of 5. All right, so then you can click on some points. Like you could click on this, and it'll show up that the point is 0, 2. You can click here. It'll tell you that that point is 0.928, 0.966. The directions don't ask for it, but if you're curious about the 0, you can click here, and it will say negative 0.868, comma 0. All right, so we want to report the relative maxima and relative minima. So this does not have a max, because one side goes up forever. It does not have a min, because one side goes down forever. But it does have both a relative max and a relative min. Right, so this is a temporary high point in the graph. The x-coordinate there is 0. And I'm going to put in parentheses that it is a relative max. All right, this is not the minimum, but it's a temporary minimum. The x-coordinate there was 0.928. The direction said to round to the nearest hundredth. So I'm going to write 0.93 and indicate that it's a relative min. All right, and then we need the domain and range. Domain for all of these is going to be all real numbers. The range, whenever it's odd, whenever the degree is odd, one side's going to go up, one side's going to go down. So because one side goes down forever and one side goes up forever, every y value is going to get hit. So the range is also all real numbers. Okay, one more. So in a different box, or erase what you had in the previous box. In Desmos, type x, and then Shift 6 to get into the exponent. X to the 3rd plus 2x squared minus 3. All right, so this graph, I'm just going to click on some key points so I know how to graph it. I know that the graph goes through here. It goes through this point. It hits around here. There's a 0 right here at 1. And then it seems to hit the top of the graph at around 1.5, comma 5. So the top of the graph we can fit on the table, that is. All right, so the graph looks kind of like this. All right, so you could click on some of the key points. First thing we want is the relative max and relative min. This is another odd one. So since the degree is odd, it's not going to have a max, it's not going to have a min, because the two sides, one will go up forever, one will go down forever. All right, so if you click at this relative max, it tells you the coordinates there are -1 point, I'm going to go ahead and round it now, -1.33, comma, -1.82 if I'm rounding. All right, so -1.33 is a relative max. Then we click on the one down here. So if you click here, you get that this point is 0, -3. We only report the x coordinate. So 0 represents the location of the relative min. All right, domain is all real numbers. The range, so again, one side goes up, one side goes down. Every y value is going to get touched, so the range is also all real numbers. All right, so remember on the quiz, you won't be graphing by hand. You'll just be analyzing graphs like we did. All right, and that's it for this lesson.